Okay, red. Oh, we're actually going to see it from Michiru's perspective. Okay. Michiru had been playing with an orange in her room. Simply watched her in silence. However, she didn't pay me any attention. Michiru peeled the rind off. She didn't give any to me, of course. Instead, she tossed an orange slice, still covered in pith, into her mouth. Michiru pursed her lips in response. It seemed the sour had hit before the sweet. All of a sudden, the door swung open. Two strangers stepped inside. They were wearing crisp business suits that looked silly on them. Nothing like that detective in his worn and torn attire. One of the men promptly shut the door.
白崎みちるさんですね。
Michiru nodded.
お迎えに上がりました。
The man stumbled over his words. Not one used to talking so politely, in all likelihood. His smile looked painfully forced, too. Okay, so this is part of like the thugs that the Blessed Congregation hires.
兄貴、見つけたんだったらさっさと行きましょ
The other man, who'd been stationed in front of the door, abruptly interrupted. Sounded to me like he was using rather vulgar language. Probably because he hadn't been talking to Michiru.
お前は黙って表の様子を見とけ。
The man who'd been talking to Michiru jeered at his companion. The momentary lapse in the facade must have been his true self.
う。今だったら大丈夫です。
The other cracked the door open and beckoned to his partner.
じゃあ、では参りましょ
The man seized Michiru's arm. Her face scrunched with pain. Despite the man's attempts to sound polite, he was clearly used to handling women like objects. However, Michiru offered no resistance and simply followed him to the door. We went out into the hallway. Yeah, I'm figuring this is actually technically from the perspective of her rabbit. It was empty. But of course it was, otherwise the man on watch would have notified his associate already. I was curious where these men were taking Michiru. The man dragged Michiru toward the back exit in a hurry. However, she was simply too slow for him.
う。くそ。
Cursing, the man picked Michiru up. The man scurried outside. He passed through a narrow path that was still blanketed in snow. The truck was parked dead ahead. The other man was waiting for us in the driver's seat.
兄貴、急いでください。
分かってる。焦らすな。
The man deposited Michiru into the bed of the truck. Michiru suddenly dropped me. Yep. I fell to the ground.
おう、早くだ。
The man issued an order after covering Michiru with a sheet that canopied the truck bed. A moment later, the truck roared and rumbled as it began to take off.
待って、キャロル。
Michiru stuck her hand out of the truck bed.
危ねえから引っ込めろ。
The man grabbed Michiru's arm.
キャロル。
However, the driver ignored Michiru's pleas, leaving me to silently watch as the truck exited the parking lot.
キャロル。
Michiru lay down in the dark truck bed and buried her face into her hands, weeping.
おとなしくしててください。
The man pacified Michiru in a voice that was just barely fighting back irritation. Michiru saw right past his veneer and shut her mouth. The truck rattled. Michiru had no idea where they were heading.
兄貴、行き先は本部でいいんですか？
The driver called back into his truck bed.
あそこしかねえだろう。まずあの方に報告しなければならないから。
He clearly had a destination in mind, but where remained a complete mystery. Eventually, the truck stopped after traversing particularly bumpy terrain.
着いたぞ。
The man lifted the silent Michiru. Her limbs dangled like a drowned swimmer.
生きてるんですかそれ。
The other man seemed concerned about Michiru's complete lack of motion.
とりあえず中に連れて行くぞ。
Having lost all will to move, Michiru just quietly let the man carry her into a building. Ultimately, she was taken to an empty room. Michiru didn't budge even after the man had placed her on the wooden floor. It was ice cold, yet she didn't pay that any mind.
ここにいてください。
The man left the room with those words. Michiru heard him lock the door. However, she didn't even react to that.
あの方はどこだ。
それが今日はこっちに来ていないようで。今からあっちに連れて行けと？勘弁してくれよ。
The men were discussing something. Michiru focused on their conversation.
とにかく連絡を取ってくれ。あいつとどうすりゃいいのか俺にはちっともわからねえんだよ。
そりゃ巫女とやらにするんでしょ？ここを仕切るんだったらその後見人になるのが一番みたいですからね。
その巫女ってのはあんな気味悪い女じゃないとなれないのか？なんていうかおかしかったぜあいつは。
そういう方が神秘性があるとかなんとかってことじゃないんですか？
Michiru had no idea what they were discussing.
いいから電話してこい。他の連中に見つかったら大変なことになるんだからな。
はい。
With that, there was nothing but silence. Yet Michiru still didn't so much as twitch. In fact, she'd stopped caring about the cold altogether. Why, she didn't even seem concerned by the lack of my presence. Just then, she heard a voice outside.
すいません。
Appeared someone else had arrived.
いや、これは違う。
Michiru couldn't make out the newcomer's voice. A few moments later, she heard a creak. The door had opened. Though she didn't react, she still focused on all the sound coming from that way.
白崎みちるさんですね。
Naori? Michiru turned her head ever so slightly toward the source of that voice.
立てますか。
She took the hand that was offered to her.
あなたが。
The man never finished his sentence. As such, Michiru had no idea what he'd been trying to say.
病院まで送りましょう。
The man helped Michiru to her feet and led her out of the room.
ここでのことは誰にも話さないでもらえるとありがたいのですが、
And she makes a
あな
promise.
たにならばできると思いますけれど。
Okay, so Naori's the one she made a promise to, huh? Michiru nodded. I drove to Kichiki Hospital after getting a call about an emergency. My heart had pounded furiously during the whole car ride over. All I'd been told was that Michiru had disappeared from the hospital. Whether I wanted to or not. Okay, have I seen this? Oh, I
美
have
咲さ
seen
んは
this.
不審なトラックを追って出て行きました。
Went after the truck.
誘拐の可能性があるんですか。
そう言ってました。その白崎さんの親御さんが典型会の。
なんだって。
Didn't seem Nanako had been aware of the fact either, judging from her attitude. Why would they be coming up now? Could the blessed congregation have had a hand in this kidnapping?
時坂さん、
Hi, Matsuke. Matsuke rushed in from the entrance just then.
どこに行っていた。
典型会の本部です。その
Matsuke answered as he eyed Nanako.
どうだった。
それが信者の娘を誘拐する意味。
そりゃそうだろうな。
No shit, he said that. This nitwit didn't seriously expect him to just openly admit to kidnapping, did he?
前に時坂さんが言ってたじゃないですか。次の巫女を作ろうと。
違ったんだろう。早とちりしすぎだ。本当にそういう候補に挙げられているのならば。
Were that the truth, they sure as hell wouldn't have left her in the hospital all this time.
でも他に手がかりもなくて。
分かってる。一旦座って落ち着け。
Matsuke sat on a bench, setting the stuffed rabbit he was carrying next to him. It was the same one Michiru always had with her. The fact that it had been found alone meant that she must not have been in a position to pick it up. A prospect that bade ill for her.
今からでも遅くはない。
However, the rest of my sentence died in my throat. The sight of Koharu entering the hospital with Michiru in tow. Now that we've all seen, yeah. But now we know who she made her promise with. At least we're pretty sure. Actually, I take that back. We don't actually know, do we? Okay. So this is an unread section. So I have skipped past the part. There's a new choice that pops up where after you take Yukiko home, that she will try to sleep with you. And I declined it. One, for my own personal morals, but for two, because the guy told me to. Because apparently you're just guaranteed to be fucked into a bad ending if you try to sleep with Yukiko. And it makes 100% sense because I don't know yet. But I'm going to assume that this is where Yukiko attacks Kyoko. So it would make sense because if I remember correctly, Yukiko walked in on Reiji and Kyoko starting to get a little hot and heavy. They weren't full on going at it, but they were starting to, get into the mood. And then you're given the option to either stay behind with Kyoko and lay some pipe or escort Yukiko home. And since we know that Yukiko was trying to quote unquote absorb Kyoko, it then makes sense because when you take her back to the apartment, she says that, she brings up the fact that she walked in on Reiji and Kyoko getting into it. And that's when she propositions herself to Reiji. And that's why I think this is the scene where we're going to see Yukiko actually attack Kyoko. But by all means, let's find out. She served me a cup of coffee. Light brown bubbles rimmed the edges of the pitch black liquid within. They popped one after another. Not that I could hear them, of course. The only sound in the room was soft music from the record player. Apart from that, it was completely silent. I had the lack of other customers at the moment to thank for that. She sighed from behind the counter. How many times had she done that today? At the very least, I had long since lost count of all the ones she'd made in my presence. She must have been exhausted. She must have been at the end of her rope. I wish I could do something, anything, to help her. I opened my bag and procured a book. Fortunately, the words adorning the pages refused to stick with me no matter how hard I tried to focus on reading. The throbbing in my skull wasn't helping. Though why it ached, I couldn't tell. It wasn't like I had a fever or anything. Sighing myself, I closed the book. However, my fingers brushed against something hard when I put it back in my bag. Took the offending object out and glanced at it, the painting knife. What is this doing here? Because we found out later that's what she got shanked with, right? Yeah. Couldn't even remember by that point. Wait, I know. I use this to liberate her from her suffering. Wow, that is a perfect point for the music to die off. I'm sure I can do it. Especially as I am now. With that thought, I rose to my feet, slowly, so as not to make a sound. Her back was to me. I firmly gripped the handle as I kept my eyes on her. I wanted her. I wanted to make her mine and mine alone. I was certain our suffering would fade without a trace as a result. Just like all the rest.
どうしたの？
I rammed right into her. The butt of the handle pounded against my left palm, sending aches all the way down to my elbow. I could feel the edge cleave through flesh.
なんで？
She touched my head. Not to grab it, but to caress it. I shook my head and knocked her hand away. Then I stepped back. She fell to the ground, clutching her side. I reached for her head. Her long hair unfurled across her back like a shawl when I undid her ribbon. This was the first time I'd seen her with her hair down. She looked so beautiful. Blood dripped to the floor. Just like that, I returned to my senses. I burst out of the cafe and ran as fast as I could. No. I had meant for that to happen. I just wanted her. I just wanted to save her. I wiped my tears with the ribbon as I raced through the dark streets until I finally got home and crawled under my covers. But now I can always be with the one I love. Freaky.
まあ待ちたまえ、沢城さん。
No! Nanako deliver. Oh, right, because Kohane found Nanako and asked her to deliver the message to, oh, who was it? Yeah, somehow Kohane gets a hold of Nanako and gives her the poem to give to Yukiko. And so Nanako, and see, we noticed before that Nanako was all nervous and shit around Utsuki. Of course, during the scene with the first time around, we didn't really understand why. And now she's like, I'll just be going then. And then he's like, no, hold on a minute. It's like, no, don't. Please, don't do any more to Nanako. She's a sweetheart, for the love of God. She hadn't told him her name. Not here, at least. Oh, fuck. I didn't even realize that. She hadn't told him her name. He just recognized, oh.
どこかで見たことがあると思えば。
Nanako bit her lip and looked away.
あの時は随分と世話になった。
Utsuki took a step forward. Meanwhile, Nanako took one back. Nanako couldn't find it in herself to speak. Now when she was so close to sobbing from the rush of traumatic memories. No, Nanako!
そうか。 黒谷君もあそこの出身だったな。何？悪いようにはしないから。
How do you expect me to relax? Now that she was faced with him again after all this time, those terrible memories she'd only just begun to put behind her returned in full force, tearing her apart like ravenous vultures.
失礼します。
Oh, Nanako. Sweetie. Nanako took a deep breath when she reached Naori's infirmary. She was sweating despite the cold. First yesterday, and now this. Nanako wrapped her arms around herself, for she never would have been able to stop shivering otherwise. Aww. She stayed rooted in place for the next few minutes, weeping her heart out. Girl. I think what fucking hurts me the most about all that is just how much, like, dirt I was fucking throwing on her when I was first started playing this game. When I was first narrowing down suspects, and the amount of times I was like, I don't trust you, Nanako. You're a shifty bitch. Or I'm like, oh, Nanako's got to be involved somehow. I know Karen's a part of it, but I'm sure Nanako's involved too. All the times I was just constantly throwing dirt on Nanako. And it's like, no, Nanako's just, she's just trying her best, man. She's got a fucked up past and she's just trying her best. I think that's just part of why I feel so fucking bad about it. Because, man, she didn't deserve anything I fucking said about her earlier in this playthrough. God damn it. Homegirl, like I said, if there's anyone who needs to catch a dub here, it's Nanako. Give her just one good thing, please. Just one good thing. That's all I ask. Please. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Why do we have to bring Nanako back into this? No. No. So this is shortly after they set the trap for Karen, and Karen's been, got. And this would be also after they got Yukiko out of, after Yukiko linked back up with Kohane. Well, linked back up with, tried to kill Kohane. No, wait, I got it backwards. Kohane tried to kill Yukiko. Doesn't matter. The fact is, Yukiko has already left the congregation. And now we're back to Nanako, and the screen's red. Come on. Don't tell me things are gonna get worse for my girl. Nanako sat all by herself in the so-called meditation chamber. It was the first time she'd been there on her own. Normally, she only went to this building when Naoto was present, and stuck to his side like glue whenever she did. But today he was nowhere around. Okay, but this is after... Is this after Utsuki gets killed? I think so. However, that was no miscalculation on her part. She specifically chosen to come by when he wouldn't be here. Suddenly the door opened behind her.
本当にあなたが来るとは思いませんでした。
Nanako curled her hands into fists atop her lap. Oh, is she the one who killed him? Is that the case? Is that what we're about to see? Believe me, I'd rather be anywhere else right now. I have to put an end to this for good.
お体の具合は
She'd heard Keigo Utsuki had suffered from gout for many long years.
数日前から膝が痛み出しましてね。
そうでしたか。
君を可愛がることができなくて残念。
A shudder ran down her spine.
今日はそのために。
まさか
Nanako vehemently shook her head.
私はこのことを誰に
心配せずとも口外するつもりはない。
やめてください。
しかし、いくら金のためとはいえ、実の娘にそういうことをさせるとはね。
Nanako couldn't answer that.
そうか。
Utsuki drew close and raised Nanako's head. His debauched countenance made Nanako feel as though a colony of worms was wriggling across her from head to toe.
奴は君の過去を知っている。
Nanako Nanako's head shot up just as she'd been trying to look away.
その様子では
Utsuki's visage contorted sadistically.
お願いします。あの人にだけは。
それはあなたの態度いかんにかかっています。
Smug superiority in his voice drove bile up her throat.
何を。
それはお任せするよ。君がしたいと思うことをすればいい。
わかりました。
Nanako gulped, her mind made
医
up.
務室でお待ちしています。
ほう。どのような思考かね。
Nanako ignored him and left the meditation chamber. Yeah, she's gonna poison him somehow. Because, like, they think he overdosed on his medication. So she's purposely gonna find his medication and make him overdose on it. Nanako. And this is what I was saying. I was like, if Nanako does something to anyone, this is the one motherfucker I want her to do something to. Absolutely kill this fucker. Nanako slumped to the floor and took a deep breath when she was in the infirmary. The die was cast. There's no turning back now, nor did she plan to. She clasped a small medicine bottle with those thoughts in mind. It was then that Utsuki entered the room.
さて、
その前に痛風発作の兆候。
膝あたりにかゆみが出てきているか。
お薬を処方させていただきます。
Nanako turned her back to Itsuki and faced the medicine cabinet.
コルヒチンの錠剤ならば帰宅すればあるが。
コルヒチンは発作のごく初期段階じゃないと効き目が少ない。
そのくらいのことは分かっている。
Utsuki swallowed a pill from the medicine bottle he'd taken from Nanako, downing it with water. Good on ya, Nanako. Good on ya. I mean, you're probably gonna have to, if they find out you did it, which I mean, it's gonna be pretty difficult to find out you did it, but if they do find out you did it, you're probably gonna have to serve time. But you know what? If it were up to me, you know, you wouldn't have to. But good on you, girl. Kill your abusers. I love it. Okay, so is this the normal end taking place? Because here we, as you can see, we've caught up with Yukiko trying to get at Yukari here. Okay, Reiji accuses her of the absorbing thing, and she's like, no. It was then that Michiru stepped forward, drawing all eyes to her.
ユキコちゃん。
Michiru briefly looked Yukiko in the eye before taking a deep breath. Oh, this is unread, okay.
本当のユキコちゃんはユキオちゃんが殺された時に死んでしまったのね。
The knife fell to the floor.
私はここにいるわ。
Yukiko rose to her feet and backed away from Yukari, only to abruptly freeze on the spot.
兄さん。誰？ええ。私の左目が見ていた。
Michiru stood face to face with Yukiko, pressing against bandages covering her left eye socket.
どうして？それはユキコちゃんだけが知
Why
って
the
いる
fuck
こと。
would I know, dude? Michiru shook her own head.
私だけが知っていること。そうよ。私、どうしてあの時何も言ってくれなかったの？
京子は君をかばっていたんだよ。
なんで？どうして？私、そこまで優しくなれなかった。
君がかぶっている人格の皮はまがいものに過ぎないからね。いくら表層を演じていても。
そう。
Yeah. Yukiko hung her head, shoulders slumping.
いつから私を忘れてしまったのでしょう。ユキコ。
Yukari got up and addressed Yukiko.
私の前にいたユキコはいつでもユキコでしたよ。時坂さん。でも私は。
Yukari shook her head and flashed Yukiko a smile.
ですからそれもユキコなんです。
Oh, Yukari, you're too sweet.
大切に思ってくれていたんですよね。それは。
Yukiko blinked repeatedly, eyes streaming out tears.
みんな大切で。取り返しのつかないことなんてありませんよ。今までのことを反省し、これからどうするか。
Yukiko fell to her knees.
償う方法なんて。
Just then, she swiped the knife off the floor and pointed it at herself. You know, I was just about to say she dropped the knife, and I was like, okay, so this is the ending where no one gets shanked. Nope.
ごめんなさい。
Crimson blood spattered, stained her pastel uniform.
どうして。
Oh. God damn it, Yukari, you a real one. I love you. Took me a moment to realize Yukari had grabbed the blade of the knife before it could sink into Yukiko's heart.
ゆかり
I stopped in my tracks as I was about to break into a dash. Seeing the rage flaring in Yukari's eyes as she bore the pain had stunned me still.
いい加減にしてください、ユキコ。
Never in my life had I heard Yukari sound so angry. Yukiko recoiled with a start.
私はこれ以上大切な人を失うのは嫌なんです。
Sweetie.
もうあんな思いはしたくありません。
Oh, fuck.
どうしてみんな私を置いていくのですか？
Oh, Yukari. Yukari burst into tears. Yukiko dropped the knife. They fell to the floor once more.
ユキコには生きてほしいんです。あなたは決して一人なんかじゃありませんから。
Yukari embraced Yukiko.
一緒に生きて笑ったり怒ったり悲しんだりしてほしいんです。
Yukiko buried her face in Yukari's chest and wept.
ユキコ。
Fumi attempted to race over to the girls, but I grabbed her by the arm before she could so much as take a step.
もう少し二人にした。
Fumi quickly understood what I was getting at and backed off.
時坂さんの出番はほとんどありませんでしたね。
それでいいんだよ。俺がバラバラにするよりも。
そうかもしれませんね。
Sure, maybe I could have dispelled the darkness in her heart. That wouldn't have saved her. Not like Yukari had.
ありがとう、時坂さん。
Yukiko wiped her tears and got up.
ゆかりで
Yukari smiled.
ゆかりさん、ありがとう。
Yukiko nodded.
ユキコ、
Fumi stepped forward. I didn't stop her this time.
一人で辛かったのよね。もう大丈夫だから。
Fumi hugged Yukiko and stroked her hair.
ごめんなさい、母さん。私にも償わねばならない罪があるから、どうすればいいかわからないけれど。
ゆかりさん、
Masuki dashed over to Yukari and tended to her bleeding hand before I even got so much as a word in.
無茶はしないでください。
でも他に方法はありませんでしたから、先にナイフを遠くにやっておけばよかったのですが。
She's been so goddamn reckless, but I couldn't get mad at her. After all, I was at fault for forcing her to step up to the plate and talk Yukiko down. And again, I knew Yukiko's obsession would have never been vanquished if I had just rushed in and disarmed her at my first chance, instead before hauling her away.
妹を他人に取られて嫉妬してる。
んなわけあるか。
Oh, Michiru. By the time Yaginuma and his boys arrived, several hours after I sent Masuki to the police station at the foot of the mountain, it was already dark as the abyss outside. Then I suffered through eons and eons of questioning and the like, until I finally made it out the other end, with dawn nearing and me just one step from passing out.
それで彼女が被疑者ですか。
Yaginuma heaved a sigh.
また面倒なことをしてくれましたね、先輩。一つは刑事事件として捜査がされていますが、他は事故扱いと。
事故として処理されてしまったものを再捜査するのは プライドが許さないか？
面倒だと言っただけです。自白以外の証拠が見つからない場合、有罪を認めることはできないんですよ。
それならそれで構わない。重要なのは彼女が自らの罪を認めたことなのだから。
警察はそこまで暇じゃありませんよ。起訴できないのであれば動く道理はありません。
The sole confession Kyoko had made was to us, mere civilians. And honestly, I doubt she'd share that with the police.
もっとも逮捕したとしても精神鑑定は行いますがね。
そのあたりは任せるよ。
While I'd made her confess to her crimes, it didn't mean I wanted her behind bars for long now, that she'd been freed of her obsession.
それで時坂ゆかり誘拐に関してはどうしますか？
そんなものは起こっていないよ。
それならばいいのですが。
Yaginuma shrugged.
典型会教師殺害に関してはうまくやれば正当防衛が成立するかもしれませんね。
宇津木警護の件に関しては
ひとまとめにしてしまうことも考えたのですが、彼が殺害されたのは13日の未明です。
となると結局犯人は見つからず。
目下鋭意捜査中ですよ。
Yaginuma closed his notebook.
では連行します。
Yukio approached, flanked by a cop on each side. Fuyumi was right there with them.
朽木病院に寄っていただけないでしょ。
時間が時間ですから八王子署で済ませたかったのですが仕方ありませんね。
Yaginuma shrugged.
ありがとうございます。
Yukiko bowed her head.
お二人はパトカーで、先輩は勝手についてきてください。緊急車両ではないんですから交通法規を遵守してくださいね。
わかってるよ。
Yukiko and Fuyumi squeezed into the back of a squad car.
俺たちも行くか。
ええ。
I strolled back to my car with Yukari and Masaki in tow.
どちらにせよ病院には行かなきゃならないか。
Michiru was snoozing away in the back seat.
ゆかりも一応病院に着いたら見てもらえよ。
私なら平気です。
んなわけないだろ。
I pointed to the handkerchief bandaging her hand.
そいつの汚れたハンカチじゃバイキンも入るだろう。
汚れたって時坂さんがくれたものじゃないですか、年末に。
True, I had bought it. It was actually Ayamu who'd picked it out, and Yukari who'd given it to him.
とにかく行くぞ。
I got into the car with Masaki riding shotgun, and Yukari and Michiru in the back, then took off after the police car that had already had a significant lead on us. Dawn had already broken by the time we reached Kichiki Hospital. The squad car was sitting still in the parking lot, Yaginuma out smoking a cigarette in the chilly morning air.
遅いですよ、
警察車両と比べないでくれ。こっちは4人乗っただけで加速がうんと鈍るんだからな。
買い替えたらどうですか？
バカ言え。こいつは魚住に託された形見なんだぞ。
勝手に魚住さんを殺さないでください。
Yukari got out of the car and rebuked me.
ユキコ。
She immediately darted over to her friend.
ゆかりさん。京子さんに。ええ。構いませんよね。
Yukari looked up at Yaginuma.
どうぞご随意に。逃走される恐れもないでしょうからね。
ありがとうございます。
We entered the hospital, leaving Yaginuma back in the parking lot. Would have stopped him if he tried following us into Kyoko and Kane's rooms. Fortunately, though, it seemed he knew how to take a hint.
あら、大勢でどうした？
Kyoko gave us a smile when she saw our whole gang.
京子さん。
Yukiko sprinted over to the bed and hugged Kyoko.
あらあら。
Kyoko ruffled Yukiko's hair.
ごめんなさい。
Yukiko wept, burying her face in the sheets.
もういいのよ。大したこともなかったし、明日退院することが決まった。
Yukiko froze up.
いつかかな。
Yukiko nodded over and over as she kept her face buried, refusing to tell Kyoko when that someday would be all the while.
それでは。
Yukiko got up, bowed, and left the room with Yukari.
まさき、お前はあっちについていてやってくれ。
わかりました。
Masaki exited, leaving me, Kyoko, and Huyumi all alone.
時坂くん、
なんだ。
あの子のこと。
Kyoko's eyes welled with tears.
あの子、捕まったんでしょ？葉月ちゃん、 ユキコは他の罪も償わなければならないのよ。だから。
そうなの。
The two women hung their heads.
すまない、京子。
In the end, I'd accomplished little more than preventing the worst possible outcome. Suddenly, Huyumi raised her head and looked at Kyoko.
葉月ちゃん、私決めていたことがあるの。
何？
お店の借金、私に肩代わりさせて。迷惑をかけたお詫びに。
そんなことさせられないわよ。それ
Oh, and
に
that's
金
what she's
額
gonna
も大
use
き
the
いし
cash
無理よ。
for. Kyoko shook her head.
使い道のないお金が余ってるの。何百万円という額で。手元に残しておくわけにもいかないし。
そんなこといきなり言われても。
Kyoko looked up at me, her countenance illustrating bewilderment.
俺が使い道についてとやかく言える立場ではないんだが。
Besides, that money had been the blessed congregations to begin with, so this would just be putting it back where it came. And she could probably say goodbye to them for good.
もう少しだけ考えさせて。
Kyoko hung her head again.
ええ。
Yukari and Yukiko finally reached Kahane's door.
先に手当てをした方がいいんじゃないか。
Muskie whispered into Yukari's ear.
消毒などの応急処置は済ませてありますから。
Yukari's eyes shifted to the door. Yukiko was standing frozen like a statue before it. Her hand was balled into a fist to knock, yet she didn't so much as budge. However, she knew she had to be the one to do it. That was the whole reason she was here, after all. And so, Yukiko reluctantly knocked on the door after a pregnant pause.
小羽ちゃん、私、ユキコ。
入ってます。
The air vibrated with Kahane's shout. Tone sounded a bit playful to Yukari's ears.
小羽ちゃん。
使用中です。
Yukiko momentarily bit her lip as though she'd realized Kahane was just teasing. However, she quickly pursed those lips and grabbed the doorknob. No sooner had Yukiko stepped in than did Kahane shout. Turned out she'd been getting dressed just behind the door.
だから使用中って言ったでしょ。
Kahane turned her back.
まさきさんは廊下で待っていてもらえますか。
そうですね。
Masaki finally broke out of his stupor and left the room.
ごはん。
Yukiko timidly spoke up.
何？
Kahane stopped changing.
ごめんなさい。
Yukiko bowed.
それだけ？
Kahane didn't so much as turn.
大体のこ
そうなんだ。
Kahane finished donning her uniform, then marched over to Yukiko. Yukiko shut her eyes and braced herself.
バカ。
Kahane hugged her.
と。小羽。心配したんだから。
Kahane muttered into Yukiko's ear.
私もごめん。ユキオちゃんのこと。それだって。本当はといえば。
Yukiko reciprocated Kahane's hug.
私のせいで。ずっと苦しませて。ユキコちゃん。
Kahane heaved with sobs. It warmed Yukari's heart to see her friends make up. She couldn't have taken it if they'd been separated before getting an opportunity to bury the hatchet. For neither of them would be seeing Yukiko again for at least a while.
小羽ちゃん。ごめんね。
The red-eyed Kahane looked up.
私、取り返しのつかないことを何度も犯していたことも思い出したの。捕まったの。
Yukiko nodded ever so slightly.
それで、罪が消えるわけではないけれど。
Kahane glanced at Yukari. Yukari could do nothing more than silently shake her head.
ユキコちゃん。
Kahane gave Yukiko another big hug.
私、待ってるから。友達だから。ずっと待ってるから。ありがとう、カーネちゃん。
Not even Yukari could keep herself from crying at the sight of the girls embracing. Damn. So I'm very curious what the true ending is then.
Oh,
I mean, we're not done with this
時坂さん。
ending yet, so I guess we don't know for sure, but seems like everything's all's well that ends well thus far. Muskie looked up from the bench.
お前は何をしているんだ？
追い出されたんですよ。
Muskie gestured to the door in front of him.
覗き見してた。
Michiru, who turned out to have been sitting right next to Muskie, chose that moment to chime in.
そりゃ最低だな。
Yep. I love Michiru.
不可抗力ですってば。
Muskie shook his head. Truth be told, I had told Muskie and Huyumi that Michiru was their daughter. Considering everything that happened over the last few days, I figured it'd be best to give Huyumi some time until she was in a better headspace. Man, now that I know the truth, it's no wonder Michiru's so comfortable around Muskie. Though I had no idea Michiru herself had figured it out.
ユキコは
中で鳥居さんと話をしているよ。
大丈夫かしら。
Huyumi shot the door a worried look.
大丈夫。
Michiru grabbed Huyumi by the sleeve.
そうね。ありがとう。
Shortly thereafter, the door opened, revealing Yukiko and Yukari.
小羽は今日退院するそうです。手続きなどがあって遅くなるそうですが。
そうか。何か言っていたか？
親戚の方が費用などを負担してくださったとおっしゃっていました。
Good. Looks like that phone call I made here yesterday did the trick after all. Paying his daughter's hospital bills was the least her real father could do, considering he hadn't done a goddamn thing for the rest of her life.
兄さんが手を回したのですね。
俺は親戚でも何でもないぞ。
皆さん、
Yukiko bowed.
おかみさん。私はいい。
Yukari smiled as she had her left hand behind her right.
私待っていますから。
Yukiko shed tears. She cried so many times today that her eyes were already red.
私
Yukiko convulsed with sobs as she hugged Yukari.
帰ってきたらまた3人で遊びましょう。
Yukiko nodded over and over as she wept.
そろそろいいですかね。
Aginuma approached from the entrance just then. Couldn't tell if his chosen timing was the worst or perfect. Yukiko wiped her tears away and
ゆ
bowed.
かり、その手を見てもらったら、まさきに車で家まで送ってもらえ。
わかりました。
では行きましょう。またね、みちるちゃん。
Ichiro let go of Huyumi's hand. Yukiko got back into Yaginuma's squad car.
あちらではないんですか？
Cocked my head when I saw Huyumi joining me as I made my way to the other police car.
お話があります。みちるちゃんのことで。
気づいていましたか？
ええ。七子のことですから。
Huyumi bit her lip.
それで、このことは
彼女は気づいていましたよ。その上で昨日はついてきたんです。お母さんのためにユキコさんを助けると言ってましたよ。親子の絆、そう言いたいところですが、彼女を取り上げた3回、あなたの人格矯正をした精神科医と同じ医者が、彼がこうなる事態を予測していたとは思えませんが。
Rather, I seriously hoped he hadn't. Then again, the guy had a sickening talent for pulling strings behind the scenes.
先ほど言った通りです。お母さんのために動いているんですよ。
Huyumi covered her mouth and choked back a sob.
このことは、まさきにもまだ伝えていません。いきなり父親だと言ってもどうすればいいかわからないでしょうか。
Though admittedly, it was also partially my fault for not knowing how to tell him.
だから、あなたに全て任せます。
今はまだどうするべきなのかわかりません。
時間はまだありますからね。